Oh, do I ever? I mean, I've referenced it in speeches that I went to ABC to a producer because I realized you can't just break a story on a blog. You have to get the mainstream media to cover it as well. And so I thought, what the hey? I'll call up John Stossel. Seems like an honest guy. Seems like he'd think that the president's vaunted community organizing group treating a fake prostitute and a fake pimp with servants with a smile in every office except for one. I thought, you know, maybe there's a story here.
What did I tell you?
And I remember you said that it is a story and that you would probably commit a month to a story like this because it is so blatant, but you said that the politics within ABC were just, you know, that you couldn't do it.
And that's true. I had all kinds of good stories I couldn't get on, but, well, I could have had that scoop, and I blew it. So annoyed. But I've moved on from that. And I'm struck by how you are now, as much as anyone, the person the left hates most. And recently you went to this Netroots conference, and they went crazy on you. We have a clip of that.
Have you ever done cocaine? Yes or no? What's going on? Have you ever slept with a prostitute? Have you? A male one? Have you? Be careful. Coward! 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 Coward!
So you finally just left. What are they so freaked out about? You're just a guy telling another side of the story.
Well, a week before that, I was being accused of being Congressman Wiener's hacker by the Daily Kos, which is a very prominent website on the left. Its founder goes on Meet the Press. I'm never invited on Meet the Press. I was also called by Joan Walsh of Salon. She's on TV all the time. She accused me of savaging the girl that Anthony Weiner sent the tweet to, even though we redacted her name and didn't make her a part of the story. So the left lies about me while they tell me that I practice bad journalism. So what I wanted to do was to go confront my accusers. And as I got there, they asked me if I've slept with gay prostitutes. No. Whether I'm addicted to cocaine. No. And they just went out. They went out of their mind. That guy was screaming crazy things at me. He got security basically to kick me out of the place. And then he calls me a coward, even though I wanted to go confront these people and ask them some basic questions about why they feel that they can use the press and the new media to lie about people on the right like they have done habitually over me.
And just for the record, isn't it the Daily Kos, or is it pronounced Kos or Kos?
Daily Kos, I don't know. His name's Marcos Molitzis. Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew Breitbart. Coming up, my next guests say, we're all becoming mutants. Is it true? Do we need to be fixed?
They're calling it a cure.
There's nothing to cure. Nothing's wrong with any of us for that matter.
Putting together a special team with special powers. Join me. Mutants. I don't hate them. They must be controlled.
Good luck with that. The elites do always want to control things, but in those X-Men movies and in real life, the elites usually lose control and the mutants thrive. Okay, in real life, we don't have real mutants with superhero powers, but increasingly we can create our own personas, express more independence in how we dress, eat, entertain ourselves, even have sex. Anthropologist Grant McCracken calls it plenitude. Nick Gillespie calls this trend the rise of the mutants. So, what do you mean, the rise of the mutants?
Well, it goes in with the themes of the Declaration of Independence. In many parts of our lives, we're able to personalize our lives, and you know, you get different types of personal service. You're able to change certain aspects of yourself. When you think of, if you think back to the early 50s or something, you know, there were blacks and whites. Then you have somebody like Tiger Woods, who will put aside the sex addiction for now, but when he rose to prominence, he called himself a Cablinasian, that he was a hybrid of Caucasians, of blacks, of Indians, and of Asians. And that's more what we are. We're mongrelized, we're hybridizing, and we're constantly experimenting and trying out new ways to express ourselves or to show ourselves. And I think that that's part of why the X-Men franchise is so popular now. It's speaking to what we're doing in our real lives. We're trying to express our individuality, and we're trying to play around with different ways of kind of muddling through our lives.
And Grant, you call this plenitude. Why?
It's a sudden kind of explosion of expressive possibility, if you want. I mean, you think about people in the 19th century, Victorians, say, living lives where identities were largely assumed or assigned by class and age and gender and so on. The exercise of a traditional American liberty took the form of people pursuing the right to express themselves in a variety of ways and breaking out of those assigned identities and fashioning their own.
Plato used the phrase plenitude.
He did.
To mean?
He used it for natural purposes. That's one of the things that preoccupied the ancient Greeks, was just how many creatures there were in the world. And he said every time you get a space between two natural species, you'll have a third one appearing.
And you talked about 19th century. There you were either a peasant or a duke, and you did what your parents did. It was just accepted you would do what your parents did.
You know, one of the actors from Grease died recently, and you no longer are stuck in a high school that only has jocks, nerds, and, you know, and hoods. You now have, and Grant has written about this, where you go to a high school now and there are thousands of different possibilities. There are, you know, goth punks who are also Christian, and skaters who do this and that, and B-girls who are really boys. I mean, it's just exploding all over the place.
And why is this good? A lot of people would say, oh, this is evil.
Yeah, no, I mean, people say that all the time. The reason why it's good is because it allows us as individuals to do things that we want to do. And we wouldn't say it's bad to experiment with business practices because we might get things that are cheaper and better and more efficient and more widely available. Why would it be bad to say, as long as I'm not hurting somebody else and I'm not forcing them to do something that's wrong or painful for them, why is it a bad thing to explore all of our possibilities?
Turns out the sky isn't falling. Of course, the intellectuals are quick to accuse us of having created a world in which chaos can only be around the corner. But in point of fact, we've been exercising this personal liberty certainly since the 18th century, and the sky doesn't fall. In point
People
of fact,
have always said it's going to be the end of civilization.
Totally.
Well, and this is one of the things that's fascinating is that people say, oh my God, you know, you look at Lady Gaga and you go back to Madonna, who was this great person who blew up the virgin whore complex. That was called, you know, because women could either be virgins or whores and never the twain shall meet. Lady Gaga is the third or fourth iteration of Madonna, and we don't even care about her sexuality. It's not an issue. I think about Pop-Tarts. Pop-Tarts were created in the mid-'60s, and they originally came in three forms: blueberry, strawberry, and brown sugar cinnamon. They looked identical. And that's kind of where we were as a society. There weren't that many options, and the flavors were somewhat muted. Now when you go to a supermarket, you can buy about 2 dozen or 3 dozen types of Pop-Tarts that range from those 3 original ones to all of these brightly colored ones with things stuck on them, and occasional brands that, you know, are SpongeBob or the X-Men or whatever. I think it's a better world. It's a more interesting world. It's a more innovative world. And when you take this back to human society, you know, the fact is over the past 30 years, crime rates have gone down. Sex crime rates have gone down. You know, nobody, because they are mulatto, has to feel somehow inferior or disenfranchised from our society. We are more accepting, more tolerant. We are more peaceful. And we get to do things that are really interesting. I get to wear a leather jacket to work. That would have been impossible, you know, 30 years ago. Grant gets to dress, as an anthropologist, you should be wearing like a pith helmet or something, right? And
I have one on. It's just very small.
No, but you know, so we get to express ourselves, and that's generally a good thing.
Generally, I can see people in the audience saying, I get it for Pop-Tarts, it's nice to have more choice, but Grant, for people to break all these traditions that have stood up over time is going to eventually cause the unwed pregnancy, the breakdown of the family, the beginning of people being less kind to each other.
Indeed, I think it feels more like a kind of generosity. We're sort of accepting of people, whoever they are, whatever they wish to be. There's something slavish and kind of grim about a society in which people take their cue from stereotypes on the one hand, or the elites, the stuffed shirts to whom you were referring in the last segment, and kind of wait to hear how they ought to live their lives. I mean, that's, in a culture committed to liberty,
there's a safety, a security in that. Now the kids are anxious. They don't know what to do with themselves. They don't have clear role models.
Well, I guess the new role model is Lady Gaga, who says, you know, find your inner monster. And in point of fact, that pursuit of an inner monster never creates, or very rarely does it create, genuine monsters. So it turns out there's an expressive realm here, the exploration of which doesn't create social pathology.
Is that a Lady Gaga lyric that you're quoting?
Maybe.
Well, thank you, Grant McCracken, Nick Gillespie. Next, why did Soviet communism collapse? Because of our military, I'm told, or because of our music. Keep on rocking in the free world. Neil Young wrote that song, actually, as a criticism of President Reagan and George Bush Sr. But people in the Soviet Union played the song at rallies against the communist dictatorship. Music, pop culture, is a threat to dictators everywhere. And if we keep rocking, we'll have a free world, says Matt Welch, co-author of the new book, Declaration of Independence. And he's right, say former MTV personalities Kurt Loder and Kennedy. What do you mean he's right? What does music have to do with a free world?
Well, I think it's, people in this country take this sort of thing really ironically, like, oh, freedom, what does it mean? When you go overseas, I think that word really has a meaning. When you have a song that states it like that, it's in a different context, and it really has a deep meaning.
My understanding is...
Absolutely. I mean, I think our greatest export in this country, it's not steel, it's popular culture. And I didn't realize that until I went to Japan with my husband, who was my boyfriend, for the first time when we were 22. He was a professional snowboarder, and I went over and I saw the crowds of kids who were dressed like snowboarders, and I realized that skateboarding and snowboarding were as universal as music because it made them feel something. And I realized how international that really was, and I was proud to be tongue-kissing him.
Well, because of statements like that, a large part of the world hates us because of our loose sexual culture.
I said tongue-kissing. I didn't say anything below the Levi's.
But that's not actually true. I mean, the world loves us. They don't necessarily love our government. They love our culture. They ape it. In the Arab Spring, which we're enjoying and watching with some nervousness right now, there's a whole subculture of Egyptian metalheads called Metallians, and they've been fighting for free speech to bang their heads. And there's a whole hip-hop culture in Morocco and these places. They love that culture. They don't necessarily love the government.
But just as many people who love that, there have to be as many seriously religious people who think it's evil and hate us because
of it. But screw them. You know, I mean, this is like Iran, or the people that dislike American popular culture are not fun people. They're tyrants, they're dictators, and, you know, why should we care?
It would be North Korea, culturally, if we allowed those people to be in charge, and we really never can, because it's about cutting yourself off from emotion and feeling. And, you know, that's what music and popular culture allows you to do. And it's not the people, you know, we've been, I think, really self-centered, thinking it's about American culture, but it's really the feeling you get from participating in these things where around the world they are squashed. I mean, women can't even drive in Saudi Arabia. They can't drive here either. Am I right, people?
Oh. And I was told by the media for years that communism fell partly because of our military buildup. And the Soviets tried to spend, their economy wasn't strong enough, they collapsed. But you say it's a big part of it was our culture.
Part of the reason why communism fell was because of a junkie rock band in New York City, who wrote songs about heroin and nihilism.
Communism fell because of...
In part because of this. There's a reason why the Velvet Revolution is called the Velvet Revolution in Czechoslovakia. It's because there was a band in 1968 smuggled in a copy of the Velvet Underground and Nico, a great record that no one here at the time bought or liked, and a band started aping them, playing cover songs of this, the Plastic People of the Universe they were called. They were arrested by the authorities for disturbing the peace in 1976 because they didn't get an official license to play their music. Václav Havel recoiled in horror.
Became president of Czechoslovakia.
13 years later, after a long jail stint, he acted in open defiance of his government, said a government that shuts down rock music like this is a government that does not deserve to be in power. Signed and created this whole new movement called the Charter 77 movement, which has since been replicated in tons of different countries, including in the Arab world right now, that was based on reacting to government censorship of a rock band that was playing Velvet Underground covers in the Soviet Union. And it was the single biggest factor of sort of civil society that ended up undermining communism in the former East Bloc.